Becoming Quantum Conscious on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, coming out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. And we are doing a show by myself today, which is kind of fun and challenging, and all of these things on the United Public Radio Network. And I just also wanted to mention that we are also on Roku, Facebook, YouTube, and other platforms like Speaker and or Spreaker. And so we're all over the place, all around the world. And today we're going to be talking about creativity and what all of that is about. The creative way as we speak. And we're going to partially do this with notes and free speaking. And the creative way, as this show is titled, is all about how do you stay in a high creative state all the time? And how does that work? And how do we do that in a life that can be mundane, predictable, tedious, hard, fun, overstimulating, with lots of people or no people? And how do we do that? Well, we're going to really explore that topic about how we do stay in creativity, how that is a open vessel for us to be something greater in all of our interactions, our thoughts, what we're creating, and more importantly, where we are expanding to. Hopefully this will open the door on that a little bit. And so when we think about high creativity, it really boils down to energy and energy within us. And that would be called innate power. Some would call it innate intelligence. Basically, what that means is what is inside of you. We all have this ingredient. Some people would call it Kundalini, Chi, energy, frequency, vibration, knowing. Another popular term would be called the space. I love that one. And the process is, how do we become aware of it? How do we are able to have that flowing through us much of the time in our lives? Because it does naturally flow freely with us. When we think of our body, it is kind of an infinite concept, and therefore creativity, the flow of space, the flow of energy, happens naturally. It's just there, and our body feels better when it's happening that way. But something seems to always get us stuck to where we're not doing that. Our old friend, the ego, or limiting emotional belief systems, defensive systems, our mind, our intellect, all of those things contend with our creativity in the space within. And so we're going to just explore some of these concepts of what blocks us, and also how do we free us? How do we expand that? Well, first concept, empty and full. For most people, they run somewhere between empty and full. In fact, it's natural. It's just a natural cycle to go up and down in life, to be up and feel like you're full of life, everything's happening, and then feel like you're empty. And most people feel like when they're in that down cycle of emptiness that something's wrong. Just like they're always saying, well, full is something's right. When we're in that empty cycle, we have to contend with, this is a natural process to go ups and downs. It's biologically a sound concept that our body just does this naturally. It's more importantly, how do we not have fear about the emptiness? It's really a time that we reflect, we build, we plant seeds, we create, reflect. And also, it's a time that we might spend more time alone in this contemplative type of state. And this is generating that to where it's full. And that full cycle will have its opportunity. For most people, they're always trying to be full and be expansive or be in that up cycle, and they want to avoid the emptiness. And if you avoid the emptiness, you really cannot be in your fullness. They come together. And the really important aspect about this is, how can you be in full presence of yourself? To be fully present in your own life and understand what would it be like to create, to be in that state of fullness, in that state of full awareness of you. It's not a mind thing, it's a body thing, it's a heart thing. It is using your body and heart and letting the mind follow that path. But for some people, one of the biggest things that really um, shakes them out of this are distractions. And one of the biggest ones is to be in fantasies, to have that dreamy perspective. And fantasies can be negative and positive. Some people are addicted to all of the negative stories in their lives that they just seem to be recreating in various ways. And other people have fantasies to try to make themselves feel better when they have nothing to do with um, creating something solid that opens that out. Now, a little bit of that is fine because fantasies do enliven us, inspire us, but also maybe to see what's beyond. But if this is your daily mind food, so to speak, of feeding yourself, then you're not really optimizing your own creativity. How do you take that fantasy and apply it to something that is your greater dream or your service to something greater? This is the real trick. So, another aspect about this is being hyperactive and busy, being too busy, being so busy that you're not really having time to feel and be who you are internally. And this is what a lot of people do, whether that be socializing or working or being obsessive in cleaning their house. All of this is all about distractions. And usually that's about avoiding your emotional state, something that you're afraid of inside of you. And this is one of the biggest obstacles we have in learning to detach from our creative space. And that's kind of a good term for it, creative space, because once the space is open, the creativity naturally flows. We just have to tweak it, ask questions, be curious, listen within, and it begins to start happening. The body likes this flow because it generates more energy inside of us. It's an internal excitement that occurs when we are in that state. So, this other part of fantasies, hyperactivity, it's almost like a merry-go-round, and that you're just on it over and over again, repeating the same messages inside of yourself. And the question is, how do you get off the merry-go-round? And one of the biggest answers is change your frequency, in your cells and your DNA, the more you become sensitive to the hidden properties of the world around you, you will see properties that you can create from. Each level, you raise your vibration. Your self image, as a result, sees you participating in higher realms of awareness and possibilities. In other words, as you change your frequency by paying attention to you internally and really seeing what you're avoiding through these other behaviors and resolving that, then you leave a space for something else to show up. And the thing is that you have to nurture it. You have to give it attention. You have to stimulate it, and it will start to show up. And that's such an important part of this. And it just brings up questions. Well, how do you find yourself through so many distractions? What emotion are you avoiding through enacting fantasies and distractions? And what do you do that fascinates you? Do you spend much time doing it? These are always really good questions to ask. Is how do you find what fascinates you? In a lot of ways, it's trial and error, but also you can just start to ask yourself and ask your body or your higher self, well, what can I open up to that would really be fun for me? What am I really curious about? And it's really funny when you start staying in those states, you that it comes to you. It's like I'm in a state like that and I'm asking those questions and I'm in a library and I gaze across through the bookshelves, like 2 rows of bookshelves that have empty spaces so I can see through them. And there on the third bookshelf away, I see this one title about male intimacy with self. I'm like, what? And so I go over there and, of course, I pick up the book, and it's like one of the most amazing, life changing books. And a lot about that started in the process of asking and being curious, and then putting myself in a place where I can find this stuff. And that's, what environment can you bring yourself into? And sometimes this is just very haphazard. We just stumble into places and we're paying attention, we're curious, and we slow down a little bit. And maybe we're not in our fears so much, but we're just going, wow, I wonder what's happening here. What's going on here? And something shows up. These are somehow those best gifts show up. It's always good to question how you spend your time and how much do you spend living and seeking pleasure through entertainment or substances that does not nourish your cellular vibration and lightness of your heart. Now, that's a really big question to ask yourself is like, what entertainment or substances do you use or do that does not nourish your vibration and lightness of heart? You just want to do it because it feels good, or you just want to kill time and this fills the space. Those are some of the danger parts about creativity. Sometimes it is good to go a little bit like non-high stimulating, that you watch a television show every now and then, just to give your brain time to do less, to relax. Of course, you could just lay on your couch and do nothing and just go blank. and do that type of stuff. But sometimes these other stimulating activities are good. Um, but to look at what is expansive stimulation and something that just kills time, maybe gives you some sort of energetic satisfaction, but it doesn't really open you. In other words, after you're done, there's nothing exciting happening in your body. There's nothing that's opened. You do not feel enlivened. One of my big litmus tests with creativity is if I do something and when I start to do it or when I'm finished with it, I feel more energy inside of me. I'm alive. That's a good thing. That's what I'm looking for. So I just wrote down some ideas with this, kind of go along with this same train of thought. Um, do you go to movies that inspire? In other words, when you're in there, your heart opens, and it's almost like a probably everybody in the movie theater feels this same opening. I love to go to inspirational movies and movie theaters because most likely everybody's going to get the same reaction I'm going to have. They're going to be open in their hearts and they're going to be inspired. And being that everybody's having the same experience together and we're opened, we magnify it for each other. And this is a really good way to learn how to get in touch with your heart if you feel like you're not there. You don't have it. Go see a inspiring movie with a group of people. Go have an experience with a good group of people um, that is a expansive experience. And everybody's heart opens in that experiences and yours will too. You almost like piggyback with everybody else. And therefore you feel a higher vibration in your heart. That's how you can start learning how to be in this heart vibration, which is one of the door openers for higher creativity. The more you're in your heart, the more your heart is open, creativity happens. And so another question is, do you watch shows that expand your ideas and, of course, inspire you? Or are they eliciting something else? How does it feed you? That's always the question to ask. Do you read books that teach you something different, that helps you think differently? Do you have conversations that stimulate something inside of you? It's not just entertainment, but it's something that I feel I'm growing when I'm around this person. That's a great conversation. Or the conversation that you have together, of course. Do you eat foods that stretch your sensory awareness or expand your energetic being? Now, a lot of people eat for vitamins and nutrients, or they just eat because they feel like they need to be full. However, what you're really wanting to fill up with eating is your sensory of your senses. In other words, when you eat the food, does it stimulate your taste buds? And do you eat it slowly and consciously to where you absorb all the taste? Like, you know, take 10 minutes or 15 minutes to eat a small ice cream that is little bitty bites at a time to where you absorb the flavor totally. This is the way you do a more conscious eating, but also you're training your body to receive more information and allow the taste to stimulate you to where you get filled on taste. This is a great thing to do. On the opposite end of that would be watching a movie and just throwing in chips into your mouth. as you eat, and you're just getting this big sensory stimulation from the food and from the show, and you're not really totally paying attention to either one. You're just in this high stimulation place. Um, it doesn't it doesn't reinforce the subtlety of awareness. And that's really what you want when you want more creativity in your life, is to be in tune with the subtle things that are happening all around you and within you. This is a training ground, and food is a really important process, just like walking, and walking where you feel your entire body move while you're in this process of walking. You might have to walk slow, but you are feeling every bit of you as you do this process of something so mundane. It teaches you to be aware of your body. And as you're being aware of your body, you're being also aware of the space within you. And as the more you're in that space, the more your creativity opens and blossoms. And also, are you able to find love that opens you to a new vibration? In other words, all your interactions, can you open them to loving places to where you feel something coming out of your heart and connecting with that person? You're smiling, you're open. And there's many levels of relationships you can do this. Even if you're just getting on a bus and you give this bus driver a smile, you can still open up your heart to him as you walk by with a goodwill, but also with your friends and intimate partners, that you continue this process of opening with them, paying attention to your heart as you are in their presence. That's just as simple as it is. It's location and intention in your heart. What it does when you do this is you're training yourself to be open to new experiences, which in turn opens our creativity. Just think of your mundane relationships, your intimate partners that you see every day, and we sometimes get predictable and turned off in those interactions. If we can start looking at them with our heart and really feeling their conversations while we pay attention to our heart, creativity will happen, and probably better relationships, because that's what we're really wanting anyway, is to thrive in better relationships. So these are all really good stuff that really build this creativity, but it also expands our innate intelligence. In other words, a power inside of us that is connected to everything. It's connected to all within our bodies, but also all in our surroundings. And we're just stimulating this interior world all the time, seeing how our interior world relates to the exterior surroundings. This is a big part of what creativity is feeling that. Um, and I just keep thinking of some of the great artists that look at things in life and they feel something, and an image comes from within them, and they do something really important. They record it in some ways. For an artist, they may paint it. For a writer, they may write it down. For somebody that's just creating new ideas in consciousness, like myself, I always keep a notebook around so I can take the opportunity to get those thoughts down. So these are all good ways to be in that creative space. And I just wanted to tell you that you are listening to Becoming Quantum Conscious, and I'm Bart Sharp, and this is United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network out of New Orleans, Louisiana. And we're on Roku, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you wish to really find out more about my work, and particularly this topic, go to my website, bartsharp.com, and check out my latest book, Magic Speaks. It is all about living in the magic of creativity, creation, generation of whatever we want to create in life and how to do it. So, with that said, let's go back to childhood. Let's go back to 2 years old in our lives. This is when we're really connected with our inner child. We're starting to develop our own identity at this point. Between birth and 2, we're kind of connected with our parents, and our identity is not very strong. Their world is our world, and we're just absorbing that in. But around 2, self starts to emerge, and the child shows up. And the child is more on the feminine side of our reality. And I really like to see, as the work I do as a shaman, I'm seeing limitations that are held in the body and in locations like our spleen and our liver and our colon and lower intestines, and how we hold anger or sadness or shame and all of those type of places. But one of the things that I really see is that the inner child is very much integrated with the feminine. And when we look at the inner child or the child, we see this very feminine being. It's not yet merged into masculine being. And that's okay. It will in time. Um, so it's interesting in the work I see that the inner child begins to separate from the feminine through the conflicts they cannot resolve. In other words, things like not being able to have a voice in the family, or being intimidated, or abuse, or not being free to say, this is really one of the most important ones, not being able to express dissatisfaction or rejection, or just say no. Most children, or not most, I just say a lot of children, um, have been trained that that expression is something that they cannot do. And therefore, their inner child starts to believe it doesn't have a voice. And that expression, and that feminine expression, has to find another voice. And so it kind of goes over to the masculine side, which is on the right side of the body, whereas the feminine is on the left. And the inner child energy is more on the left. And so we start developing strategies that masculate us, that disconnect us from the feminine. And there's so many ways that this happens for everybody. For example, a little girl that really wants her father's approval, but her father may be not very affectionate or is disinterested in her daughter. But the daughter keeps trying to be a better girl, maybe becomes the best student in the class because that is one thing her father approves of, is good grades. And so the daughter begins to lose that curiosity and fun-loving part that the inner child brought out, and the creativity of that. And they become very masculated, that I have to do the best job possible. I have to make the best grades. I got to have the best job. And they become very masculine in their thinking because they just get right to it and go right to the point. And their femininity begins to change, and they lose touch with their inner child. There's very little play in them that is curious, that is relaxed. It's more nervous. Another example would be somebody who is intimidated by a parent, and they react by being aggressive. So the masculine steps in and takes charge and has to control everything before they feel safe. And so, once again, the feminine loses touch with the softer points of it because it never had a place to be nourished, never had a place to express. It went totally into masculine. As I control, as I be masculine, if I am stronger than everybody else, I have safety. It's these type of courses that people take. It's only natural. And so, in this process of finding more creativity in our life, and people are on this search or maybe even higher spirituality, they may be saying something like, I got to get in touch with my feminine side or my inner child. I want to be in touch with divine feminine. Um, and so they do a lot of things to soften themselves, playful experiences, creative experiences, but yet it's still very intellectual because they're still rigid. They have yet to figure out, how do you tame and nurture the rigidity to where it comes into a soft place. And the answer to that is, you have to see the emotions and the pain that you're in from your childhood and really deal with those issues to where you get to open up to this place. The masculine will be running on such an energy like fear or anger or sadness or shame. And it just drives with that. Or it could be a great caretaker and it's doing it from a loving place, but the source of the love comes from a place of, I'm afraid no one will love me. And to see that duality of how the masculine is separating from the feminine through one of these emotions is paramount in finding your creative space, your innate power. And it's something it's good to pay attention to. And a lot of the times when we start to get into this place where we want to move beyond this, become something better, we have to deal with these emotions, but also we can also give ourselves permission when we have done our work and we have been aware, because we can't fight it all the time. We have to leave a space for us to open to something softer and gentler in ourselves, to where the nurturing, the love, the creativity starts to open up more. And I believe you can really tell your body messages, and your body will do its best to respond. And so, just with that said, this is one of my favorite ones. I have done enough for now. Therefore, I do not have to use so much energy to repress my fears. I am comfortable now with what I have done today. And all of that energy can now go to creativity. And this is really a great thing to say. It's just basically an announcement to your body that you can let it go. I've done enough work on my sadness. I'm going to keep it in my front left pocket and always be ready to pay attention to it if it emerges. However, I'm going to live the rest of my life that way. Or I know I have anger and it's there and I feel it. I don't have to conquer it right now. How can I respond to other people without my anger merging forward? You know, one of the things I'm doing with these things is asking questions. And that is crucial in this process. When we ask, our body responds. When we ask, we plant a seed for it to be differently. And we're opening the consciousness for it to show up and for us to have a different input. So all of these things are good. We're going to the next page. We're just moving along here. And you are on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network with Roku, Facebook, and YouTube as part of your channels. You can go to my YouTube site, Bart Sharp, and see all my shows, by the way. Or you can go to the UPRN and see all of their massive YouTube files are all there for you. So enjoy. So a positive approach to all of this is the more you engage the forces of good, fortune and synchronicity, the more you live in the flow of life. And how do you do this? Live in questions, possibility, and faith. And faith is huge. And we're not talking about a faith in a higher power, though that is a very relevant and important part of what faith is. But also it's the faith in yourself that the answers will come to you and you'll know what to do when the time comes for any situation. You just ask yourself to be aware. This gives us a ending, which is an important part. In other words, we don't have to figure all of this out now. We do not have to have all the answers. We do not have to think all the time. We can open ourselves up in faith that the answers will come. I tell myself all of this all the time and then put the problem down and move on. And give myself permission to begin to enjoy various things. This is huge to be able to do this. If we were raised in families where we were under extreme stress for various reasons, this may be an important tool to use, because if we had unpredictable people in our lives that created chaos, or they were abusive or demeaning or critical, and we never knew when that was going to happen, of course we're going to start thinking and putting our feelers out all the time to be ready for that crisis. And it's really important that you turn the crisis off. And you can do it by just asking your body, I've done enough from now. I'll know what to do when the time comes. I'm quite skilled at dealing with these situations. It's just a body language. And when we do these type of things, we open up a new energy to play in the power of the initiator or the catalyst, and to live in that creative edge. And some of the questions I'm always asking, because I want to stay on this initiator and catalyst edge. This is fun to me, but also it's productive, and it builds the person who I am into a greater being. So things I ask myself are, what can I do to change my life? If I'm feeling into doldrums, which right now this week in Texas, Austin, Texas, it's in the triple digits every day. It's really hot. So we are in a low time energetically. And it's the perfect time to be asking the questions, what is next for me to create something really cool? What new thing can start merging into my life? And all I have to do is fuel it with energy. So I'm meditating. I'm staying quiet. I have a notebook around. I'm reflective. All of these things are happening during this percolation period. Something will show up. It's a low time. I'd rather cooler temperatures to be around so I could go outside and do a lot of fun stuff outside. But that's not what presented to me now. It's hot. and we're staying inside and just being in this reflective place, getting ready for that next stage. And so the questions are just planting those seeds. What would it take for me to find my next cool idea? What am I not getting about this situation that if I did would totally expand me? So one of the things I do during these times is I read books that challenge my imagination in an area I want to become. The thing about books is it slows you down to your heart's pace. Your your nervous system relaxes. Your parasympathetic nervous system starts to turn on into a more relaxed space. And so if you have a stimulating book that has maybe challenging concepts that you're interested in, that's the type of text you want because you want it to stimulate your unconscious. This is how you get these great creative ideas. And of course, what you have close by when you're doing all of this reading is a notebook and a pen. And you write these new ideas down. This is how creativity happens. It's always funny when I read about musicians that have all of these great ideas. One thing that they always say is like, yeah, this little tune played in my head and my guitar was nearby and I had a tape recorder. And they just record tons and tons of ideas. And then maybe they organize them and they have them ready. They can't remember them all in their heads, but they're in that flow of creativity and they capitalize on it. This is the big thing to remember. And another concept, as we go on to the next page, all of our energy and thoughts are not our own. In other words, we have an energetic field that is outside of our body that goes out and it intersects or with other people. People have different um, ideas and concepts about how big our energetic field goes out. But for me, I've been told that people's energetic fields can go out a half a mile. But for some people, it could be 20 miles. And for some people that seem to have way too much of other people's thoughts in their bodies, and this may influence them to be OCD or manic depressive or very hyperactive. Their energy fields may be going 10, 20, 50,000 miles out, I dare say. And they're big energy conduits. Now, the thing is that if you are picking up a lot of energies from a lot of people, this can be overwhelming. Let's just say you live in downtown Austin, Texas, and your energetic field goes out a half a mile in all directions. This means that you're picking up the energies of maybe 100,000 people all the time, which can be a little overwhelming. Unless you know how to deal with it. One of the most important things is to just acknowledge that those thoughts aren't yours. And when these really less than interesting thoughts show up, the first thing you have to ask is this really mine? Who does this belong to? And a lot of times the thought will just go away. If you react to it and go, oh my God, that's a really weird thought I'm having. Why did I have that? You're judging it, and therefore it gets stuck in you. And it starts to become a magnet to create more thoughts like that and attract more energetic vibrations like that. It really comes down to energies and frequencies, really. It's not like the actual language of the person that you're picking up, it's their frequency. And therefore, if you have the same types of frequencies as that person, you have a tendency to pick those up. So let's just say that you grew up in a childhood where you were very afraid of being abused. You would be picking up those energies from everybody you're around. Those are the things you fear the most. Therefore, because of your resistance to it, you become a attractor of it. And this is really an important part of learning how to detach from those energies, is to know your story and to work on your own issues to where you're not afraid of your past and not afraid of energies you take on from other people. And if you've been doing this for years, they can get quite intense. And doing exercises to relax that is important. Now, on the upside of attracting energies around you, you're also connected to a lot of expansive people. You're also attracted to the earth, morphogenetic fields, planets, universe, all of these things in the universe that can be quite expansive. So for me, I'm living in Austin, Texas right now. It's been my home for many, many years. And what is interesting about Austin is all of the great creators. There's all of these businesses happening that are very prosperous. And so, yes, I like to hook into the energy of that creative, prosperous vibe that seems to be moving around in Austin dynamically. And there's a lot of creators. There's also a lot of uh, private businesses, or what am I trying to say? Small businesses of people that are entrepreneurs, and that energy that it requires to be a dynamic entrepreneur. I like to connect with that. That's the type of vigor and mentality I like to play with. But also, I like to play with the morphogenetic fields of creativity, or developing psychic abilities, or being a good writer. I can connect with the really good writers that are around on the planet and connect with their energies and help me become a better writer. But also, I like to connect with the energies such as our sun, the deep places within the earth, and the list goes on and on of all the energies you can connect to. It's just quite phenomenal. It's almost like one vibration after another you're learning to take into your body, because your body has an energetic field and it can connect with any other energy out there. It does it haphazardly by just picking up energies of people that are in your proximity. However, you can dial it in and accommodate any vibration in your body. And the real key is learning what vibrations feel like. What does prosperity feel like? What does fear feel like? What does anger feel like? What does the energy of the earth feel like? What does a tree feel like? And what does my friend that I hang out and have coffee feel like? There's lots of possibilities, but I'm always in that question to open up that sensation so that I can experience that vibration. And I'm taking them all in. I'm expanding. My space is learning new things. This is awareness. This is the space that great creators are always mingling in. And as they gather and gather and gather, one day, crack, the lightning strikes and they jump a new level. A new level of awareness happens. We don't know when it happens, but a space opens in us. It's unpredictable. And those who have made these jumps in consciousness explain it close to the same thing, that they have a signal, something inside happens to them, or they see something outside of them that stimulates some big change that happens in their internal world. They have jumped up, they're never the same again. And more importantly, their creative power or their innate intelligence is expanded. It's just different. It is a rebirth. The best word to describe it, joy. Everything feels complete and whole in a new, expanded way. They're joy peak experiences. And every one that we have, we jump in a new level of creativity. We see things very differently than we ever saw before. Now we're to the last page. We're almost done with the show. Intelligence versus intellect. Intelligence is something that occurs without the use of the mind. Another term is innate intelligence. Although intelligence may use the mind as a means to transmit, it is connected to a bigger picture than that. Schools, learning centers, are more intellectual and less intelligent. Children that go to the schools are intelligent. The child is a great example of the intelligent being. They see things that we do not see because they are relaxed in their nervous system. They still have that light inside of them, and it just opens up. We as adults have to slow down and connect with our parasympathetic nervous system to expand to a greater space if we wish to be in this state of awareness. It is really slowing down in our spine and in our nervous system, and to relax those things to where the parasympathetic nervous system shows up, as opposed to the sympathetic nervous system, which is all about doing, thinking, going through your everydays, routines and stuff, and is part of intellect.